Hello and welcome back to Better Know a Poet. Today, B is for Browning, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, one of the finest poets of the Victorian era and one of my personal favorites. Elizabeth Barrett Browning was born March 1806 near Durham in Durham County, England. She died June 29th in 1861 in Florence, Italy. She was an English poet whose reputation rests chiefly upon her love poems, sonnets from the Portuguese, and her verse drama Aurora Leigh, the latter now considered an early feminist text. Her husband was Robert Browning. Elizabeth was the eldest child of Edward Barrett Moulton, later Edward Moulton Barrett. Most of her girlhood was spent at a country house within sight of the Malvern Hills in Worcestershire, where she was extraordinarily happy. At the age of 15, however, she fell seriously ill, probably as the result of a spinal injury, and what I've read in other biographies is that she fell off a horse while riding, and her health was permanently affected. She was almost an invalid and spent most of her time in bed, even at an older age. In 1832, the family moved to Sidmouth, Devon, and in 1836 they moved to London, where in 1838 they took up residence at 50 Wimpole Street. In London, she contributed to several periodicals, and her first collection, The Seraphim and Other Poems, appeared in 1838. For reasons of health, she spent the next 3 years in Torquay, Devon. After the death by drowning of her brother Edward, she developed an almost morbid terror of meeting anyone apart from a small circle of intimates. Her name, however, was well known in literary circles, and in 1844, her second volume of poetry, Poems by Elizabeth Barrett, was enthusiastically received. In January 1845, she received from the poet Robert Browning a letter that begins with, "I love your verses with all my heart, dear Miss Barrett," and culminates with, "I do, as I say, love these books with all my heart, and I love you too." In early summer, the two met. Their courtship, whose daily progress is recorded in their letters, was kept a close secret from Elizabeth's despotic father, of whom she stood in some fear. Sonnets from the Portuguese, published in 1850, records her reluctance to marry, but their wedding had taken place on September 12th, 1846. Her father knew nothing of it, and Elizabeth continued to live at home for a week afterwards. The Brownings then left for Pisa. When Barrett died in 1857, Elizabeth was still unforgiven. While in Pisa, she wrote The Runaway Slave at Pilgrim's Point, a protest against slavery in the United States. The couple then settled in Florence, where their only child, Robert Wiedemann Barrett, was born in 1849. In 1851 and in 1855, the couple visited London. During the second visit, Elizabeth Barrett Browning completed her most ambitious work, Aurora Leigh, a long blank verse poem telling the complicated and melodramatic love story of a young girl and a misguided philanthropist. This work did not impress most critics, though it was a huge popular success, and it's a wonderful work. It's a verse novel, or as I tend to think of it, as one of the only female epics. So it is a poetic epic, but with a heroine as at the center rather than a male hero. During the last years of her life, Browning developed an interest in spiritualism and the occult, but her energy and attention were chiefly taken up by an obsession with Italian politics, to a degree that alarmed her closest friends. Casa Guidi Windows, published in 1851, had been a deliberate attempt to win sympathy for the Florentines, and she continued to believe in the integrity of Napoleon III. In Poems Before Congress, 1860, the poem A Curse for a Nation was mistaken for a denunciation of England, whereas it was really aimed at U.S. slavery. In the summer of 1861, Browning suffered a severe chill and died. And so Elizabeth Barrett Browning, her poems can be divided into basically three categories. There are the love poems, such as Sonnets from the Portuguese. There's her verse epic, Aurora Leigh. And her third type of poetry she's most well known for is what might be called poems of social protest. So poems about the condition of England, about the poor, or about political issues during the day. And so what I'm going to read today, it's kind of a longer poem, but it's one of her most famous. This is called The Cry of the Children. And this is Elizabeth Barrett Browning's protest poem against the what she saw as the evils of child labor in the factories. So this is a poem that's detailing the child labor in factories, and it's very sentimental, very melodramatic. But this is the style that the Victorians loved, and it's a fantastic poem. So this is The Cry of the Children. Do you hear the children weeping, O my brothers? Ere their sorrow comes with years. They are leaning their young heads against their mothers, and that cannot stop their tears. The young lambs are bleating in the meadows. The young birds are chirping in the nest. The young fawns are playing with the shadows. The young flowers are blowing towards the west. But the young children, O my brothers, they are weeping bitterly. They are weeping in the playtime of the others, in the country of the free. Do you question the young children in the sorrow, why their tears are falling so? The old man may weep for his tomorrow, which is lost in long ago. The old tree is leafless in the forest. The old year is ending in the frost. The old wound, if stricken, is the sorest. The old hope is hardest to be lost. But the young children, O my brothers, do you ask them why they stand, weeping sore before the bosoms of their mothers, in our happy fatherland? They look up with their pale and sunken faces, and their looks are sad to see, for the man's hoary anguish draws and presses down the cheeks of infancy. Your old earth, they say, is very dreary. Our young feet, they say, are very weak. Few paces have we taken, yet are weary. Our grave rest is very far to seek. Ask the aged why they weep, and not the children, for the outside earth is cold, and we young ones stand without in our bewildering, and the graves are for the old. True, say the children. True, say the children. It may happen that we die before our time. Little Alice died last year. Her grave is shapen like a snowball in the rime. We looked into the pit prepared to take her. Was no room for any work in the close clay. From the sleep wherein she lieth, none will wake her, crying, Get up, little Alice, it is day. If you listen by that grave, in sun and shower, with your ear down, little Alice never cries. Could we see her face, be sure we should not know her, for the smile has time for growing in her eyes. And merry go her moments, lulled and stilled in the shroud by the kirk chime. It is good when it happens, say the children, that we die before our time. Alas, alas, the children, they are seeking death in life as best to have. They are binding up their hearts away from breaking, with a ceremony from the grave. Go out, children, from the mine and from the city. Sing out, children, as the little thrushes do. Pluck your handfuls of the meadow cowslips pretty. Laugh aloud to feel your fingers let them through. But they answer, Are your cowslips of the meadows like our weeds anear the mine? Leave us quiet in the dark of the coal shadows from your pleasures fair and fine. For oh, say the children, we are weary, and we cannot run or leap. If we cared for any meadows, it were merely to drop down in them and sleep. Our knees tremble sorely in the stooping. We fall upon our faces trying to go, and underneath our heavy eyelids drooping, the reddest flower would look as pale as snow. For all day we drag our burden tiring through the coal dark underground. For all day we drive the wheels of iron in the factories round and round. For all day the wheels are droning, turning, their wind comes in our faces, till our hearts turn, our heads with pulses burning, and the walls turn in their places. Turns the sky in the high window, blank and reeling, turns the long light that drops adown the wall, turn the black flies that crawl along the ceiling. All are turning, all the day, and we with all. And all day the iron wheels are droning, and sometimes we could pray, O ye wheels, breaking out in a mad moaning, stop, be silent for today. Aye, be silent, let them hear each other breathing for a moment mouth to mouth. Let them touch each other's hands in fresh wreathing of their tender human youth. Or let them feel that this cold metallic motion is not all the life God fashions or reveals. Let them prove their living souls against the notion that they live in you or under you, O wheels. Still all day the iron wheels go onward, grinding life down from its mark, and the children's souls, which God is calling sunward, spin on blindly in the dark. Now tell the poor young children, O my brothers, to look up to him and pray, So the Blessed One, who blesseth all the others, will bless them another day. They answer, Who is God that he should hear us, while the rushing of the iron wheels is stirred? When we sob aloud, the human creatures near us pass by, hearing not, or answer not a word. And we hear not, for the wheels and their resounding, strangers speaking at the door. Is it likely God, with angels singing round him, hears our weeping any more? 2 words indeed of praying we remember, and at midnight's hour of harm, Our Father, looking upward in the chamber, we say softly for a charm. We know no other words except Our Father, and we think that in some pause of angels' song, God may pluck them with a silence sweet to gather, and hold both within his right hand, which is strong. Our Father, if he heard us, he would surely, for they call him good and mild, answer, smiling down the steep world very purely, Come and rest with me, my child. But no, say the children, weeping faster, he is speechless as a stone, and they tell us of his image is the master, who commands us to work on. Go to, say the children. Up in heaven, dark, wheel like turning clouds are all we find. Do not mock us. Grief has made us unbelieving. We look up for God, but tears have made us blind. O my brothers, what ye preach, for God's possible is taught by his world's loving, and the children doubt of each. And well may the children weep before you, for they are weary ere they run. They have never seen the sunshine, nor the glory which is brighter than the sun. They know the grief of man without its wisdom. They sink in man's despair without its calm. Are slaves without the liberty in Christendom. Are martyrs by the pang without the palm. Are worn as if with age, yet unretrievingly. The harvest of its memories cannot reap. The orphans of the earthly love and heavenly. Let them weep. Let them weep. They look up with their pale and sunken faces, and their look is dread to see, for they mind you of their angels in high places, with eyes turned on deity. How long, they say, how long, O cruel nation, will you stand to move the world on a child's heart, stifle down with a mailed heel its palpitation, and tread onward to your throne amid the mart? Our blood splashes upward, O gold heaper, and your purple shows your path, but the child's sob in silence curses deeper than the strong man in his wrath. See you tomorrow.